Our group decided to choose Malaysia for our project assignment is because we are so proud to be Malaysian citizens and because any impact on the economics and Malaysia development will have impact to our lifestyle and livelihood. Malaysia was formerly the world's top producer of tin, rubber and palm oil. Manufacturing has a significant impact on the national economy, accounting for more than 40% of GDP. Malaysia's economy, which had previously been built mostly on mining and agriculture, began to diversify in the 1970s. Malaysia's growth has been spearheaded by the industrial sector since the 1980s. Besides that, paddy is Malaysia's principal food crop, is farmed on the tiny farms. Despite significant advances made possible by the introduction of new plant types, artificial fertilizer and pesticides, rice output steadily dropped in the second half of the 20th century. Next, Malaysia's main income crops are rubber and oil palm. Although rubber's contribution to GDP has fallen significantly since the 1970s, oil palm plantations have developed fast. Malaysia has become one of the world's largest producers of palm oil by the turn of the century. The country's fishing sector had flourished and run smoothly by the 1970s, thanks in part to installation of trawlers and automated fishing vessels. Lastly, the Malaysia's economy was heavily damaged by the COVID-19 epidemic in early 2020. Overall, the global COVID-19 epidemic has had an impact on the Malaysia economy. GDP performance in 2020 fell by 5.6% compared to 5.3% growth in 2019. The COVID-19 virus has had an impact on economic activities. It led unemployment to grow to 4.8% in 2019 and 4.8% in the fourth quarter of 2020.
We're gonna move on to economic policy of Malaysia. Understanding the monetary policy in Malaysia. Bank Negara Malaysia is the regulator and supervisor of the banking system, insurance companies and the development finance institution. Bank Negara's role provides many advantages and complements the monetary function. Next, Bank Negara Malaysia important goal has been to promote the development of the Malaysian financial system. Furthermore, Bank Negara Malaysia also played a leading role in institution building, including the setting up of the Securities Commission, the National Mortgage Corporation, rating agencies, development of the bond markets, and Labuan Offshore. Bank Negara Malaysia also acts as financial center in setting interest rates. A key consideration has been avoiding negative real deposit rates over sustained periods. This has promoted the mobilization of funds through the formal banking system. The bank sees the benefit of a well-developed financial system through its increased contribution to economic growth, increased efficiency of financial intermediation, and enhanced effectiveness of Malaysia's monetary policy. Malaysia Fiscal Policy. The Malaysia government fiscal strategy is to ensure that economic growth prospects remain strong in the medium to longer term to fulfill the country's development agenda and achieve the shared prosperity vision. The government's current priority is to ensuring the country's economic recovery during the COVID-19 pandemic are on track, underscored by the principles of prudent financial management. Enhanced efforts towards fiscal consolidation measures will be implemented in phases in the medium to longer term when our economy is firmly on its recovery and growth trajectory. This strategy will ensure that we balance the short-term fiscal requirements with the long-term fiscal and economic sustainability by, among others, spurring high-impact quality investments and diversifying Malaysia's revenue base.
Unemployment is defined as situations in the economy where there are people between the age of 16 and 65 who are not working but are actively seeking jobs. Unemployment rate is the percentage of employed persons in relation to the comparable total populations. The effect of unemployment to individual is emotional suffering and financial hardship, and to economy is low productions and income, slow growth and high poverty. At the end of 2019, the whole world was shaken by the outbreak of the COVID-19 epidemic, which was first detected in Wuhan, China. The implementation of MCO on March 2020 has resulted in many companies not being able to operate normally and resulted in an increase in retrenchment. In Malaysia, the COVID-19 epidemic has significantly impacted the country's education, health, social, political and economic systems. In 2020, the country's unemployment reached over 4% for the first time in almost 3 decades, which is 4.5% compared to 3.3% in the previous year. Other factors that are still a problem even before COVID-19 for unemployment in Malaysia are the attitude of Malaysians being too picky when choosing a career. Graduates are now overthinking standards and tend to choose a job that is considered good by their standards, even if the chosen job is not equivalent to their qualifications. In the end, they are more willing to be unemployed than to take a job that is not up to their standard. Other than that, low minimum wage offered. Some consider those with lower skills or experience have lower productivity levels. Therefore, a higher cost structure will delay the hiring of these workers from hiring them at lower wage until they become more experienced. This makes people reluctant to work or quit because the wage rate is not in line with the difficulty of work, plus the rising cost of living today.
Let's talk about economic problems faced by Malaysia. One of them is inflation. We cannot deny that inflation has a huge impact to our survival and cost of living. Firstly, let me explain what is inflation. Inflation, for easy understanding, is the measure of the rate of rising prices of goods and services in the economy. If inflation is occurred lead to higher prices for basic necessities such as food, it can have a negative impact on society. Thus, is Malaysia currently in inflation? The answer is yes. Malaysia's inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, increased 2.3% in April 2022 from a year earlier, led by higher food prices according to latest update by the Department of Statistics measure contribute to Malaysian inflation. The increase in food inflation is the major contributor to inflation. The increase in vegetables prices was due to weather uncertainties that have affected the majority of vegetables and caused a decline in supply in the market. In addition, the increase in the price of food and vegetables was attributed to the increase in fertilizer prices, logistics costs, and labor shortages at agricultural sites. I pass on to my team members to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Economic problems must be managed by authority efficiently. There are two economic problems that we identified, which are problems from unemployment and inflation. For the unemployment problems, the authorities can lower the interest rate to reduce unemployment in Malaysia. The cost is borrowing is lower, which is easier to people spend more money and invest more when they borrow money. It will decrease cyclical unemployment. The mindset of people who are too choosy can be controlled with the aid of using promoting something exciting in the activity to attract more interest from workers to fill up the vacancy. Give extra salary of people similar to their overall performance in the activity. It will assist to reduce voluntary unemployment. Season. The season also can be the reason of seasonal unemployment. For example, the rainy season will affect fishermen to generate income. Therefore, the authorities have to offer them other alternatives to generate income during the rainy season. The authorities can also offer them other employment opportunities. In this way, it will help them to always generate an income even though they cannot do their main job. Next, we will move on to the second economic problem in Malaysia, which is inflation. There are many ways to prevent inflation. First, the authorities can tighten enforcement on relevant legislation. The government or authorities must always monitor the price of goods, especially good food, and take steps to avoid unreasonable increases, thus reducing the burden of the people as a whole. Second, when cost-push inflation occurs, the government or agency must increase the factors of production to the development of technology and increasing labor productivity or skills. Technological developments and increasing in labor productivity will increase total supply, reduce average production costs, and increase output. As a result, the aggregate supply curve shifts to the right. Real national income rises and general prices fall. Last but not least, the government or the authorities can conduct a campaign of substitution of imported goods. Governments and private firms can work together in implementing campaigns to encourage the use of local goods or services so that local communities import less. When many import substitution campaigns are implemented, from time to time, imported inflation can be prevented.
To summarize, Malaysia's macroeconomics policy aims to strike a balance between important goals like growth and equity. Both fiscal and monetary policies serve development and stabilization's objective. Although Malaysian fiscal policy making has a larger ethnic and political component, while monetary policy has mostly been concerned with maintaining price and financial stability. Although the directions of effectiveness of these recommendations are not yet evident due to potential political influence and latitude for policy choice, they may assist reduce the existing fiscal imbalance. Proposals for fiscal consolidations and tax structure reform are also possible. While fiscal reform has failed to materialize, BNM has institutionalized its procedure and updates Malaysia's monetary policy frameworks by taking advantage of the relative behavioral independence it enjoys. Even in the face of external shocks and economic downturns, it has rarely strayed from a balanced risk approach that weighs growth and inflation. In order to re-internalize the ringgit, effort to implement a new interest rate framework and to enhance monetary transmission mechanisms may support initiatives for further financial deepening in both conventional and Islamic financial markets, as well as the gradual liberalization of the foreign exchange market. However, the impact of political variables has not entirely subsided, particularly during times of the crisis and unofficial commitments to exchange rate stability may lead to policy conundrums in the event of future external shocks. Because monetary and fiscal policies are interdependent, even when the results of the countries are asymmetric, it is necessary to have a consistent and long-lasting framework for the policy mix. In terms of monetary and fiscal policy, the findings highlight the necessity of include both in a single model because of the enormous influence that their interactions has on economic growth. As a result, both policies should be taken into account in tandem rather than separately.